Good evening, and welcome to the next DEY. Sorry, I'm blanking on the name. DEY dialogue discussion in defense of childhood. I'm like, how often do I say that? And now I'm messing it up. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Denisha Jones, and I serve as the executive director of Defending the Early Years. And we host these monthly dialogues where we're just talking about different issues related to early childhood education and care. And tonight I have two guests with me, Kisa Marx, who's been on before, and Mike Huber, who's joining me for the first time. Did I say that right, Mike? I forgot to ask you
Yes.
when you started. Perfect. Great. So, we are here to talk about your new podcast called Liberated Learning. So, I'll just read briefly what it says about the podcast on the website. It says Liberated Learning is a podcast that believes play is a space where children can claim freedom, rehearse democracy, and exercise agency. To stand for play is to stand against control. To guard children's right to play is to declare that their liberation matters, even in a world that insists otherwise. Each week, Kisa Marx and Mike Huber have a casual but passionate conversation about how they would put these ideas into actions with young children. They're talking about a revolution, but it sounds like a whisper. I really like that.
Yeah.
When I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, I hope they don't trademark liberated learning because I'll be so sad because I write about it all the time in those words. And I'm like, they don't take it away, don't take it away. But I was so excited. Other than being a little worried, I was very excited
Yeah,
for this.
yeah.
Yeah, for this podcast and the discussion. And as I said, I listen during my in between my book times when I'm waiting for my book credit. I get a chance to listen to
Yeah.
you guys, and I love it. So why don't you first start by telling the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do? So Kisa, why don't you start, and then I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me again, Nisha. My name is Kisa Marks, and I run a play and nature-focused Black child affirming early childhood space in Oak Park, Illinois, and that is right across the street from Chicago. And I am a anti-racist curriculum designer. I'm an author, and I'm all for the liberation of the children.
Yes, and you got a new book out, and we might be doing. I was going to do a dialogue on the book, but we just talked about it. So stay tuned
Yeah.
for a May book talk with Kisa Marks on her new book, which I wrote a blurb for, and I wrote a little brief essay. I can't
You
believe
sure
I
did.
got that in because I almost forgot about it. And then I said, "Is my essay in the book? My essay is in the book." I'm super
It is
excited.
in
So
there.
I am reading it, and we will talk about it in
Okay.
May. Thank you. And Mike, I know you've got some books on, so I'm going to have to get you into a book as well too, a book talk. But let's tell everyone about you.
Yeah, I'm the director of curriculum at Rise Early Learning Center in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, so just outside of Minneapolis. And we are a trauma-informed childcare center, inclusive childcare. We are housed in the same building as an affordable housing
Okay.
uh, building. So we have about half of our children live in the building, and then the other half are in the rest of the community. We have a model that has mixed income. So there's uh, quite a diversity in terms of income, in terms of race, and in terms of religion. And um, yeah, so that's what I do during the day. And then I write books when I'm not doing that. So I have, yeah, three books for teachers and six picture books. So
Nice. I didn't know about the picture book. So I think
Prolific.
your latest book was it on, don't tell me. Wait, no, tell me. Fantasy? No. Yes,
pretend
like
play.
pretend
Yep, you
play.
got
However,
it.
Pretend
yeah,
play.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. I was
Hmm.
blanking on the word, but I think Heather shared it and I saw so the cover and stuff. So that's great. I
Hmm.
have to get my hands on it. So many books. And I did come back with some books from the conference, but not as many as I wanted. Like I just because then I would need another suitcase. But and then I live out of the country now in Columbia and I'm not going to be here forever. And I'm so scared about bringing more books here because then I got to bring them all back. And
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, don't do
Mhm.
it. But then I'm like, but sometimes you want a nice physical book. All right. Well, great. Like as I mentioned, I love the podcast. A few episodes behind, but I do catch up this week. And
Mhm.
I think what I liked about the description, it is like, it's sometimes I'm walking and I'm listening to it and I'm like, wow, what they're saying just seems like very ordinary, mundane stuff. Like it doesn't like,
Hmm.
but then I'm like, but that's it, right? The liberation of young children is in the ordinary mundane stuff that we don't really think about, right? That we
Yeah.
think like we're arming kids for the battlefield of like war, but we're
Hmm.
not. We're just giving them space to be who they are.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so I'm like, am I missing something? Am I not paying attention? Because, I'm power walking through the park and I'm trying to, but I'm like, no,
No.
I'm actually getting it. It's just like
Yeah.
really thinking about the options. Well, you guys can tell them what it's about. That's what I think it's about. But why don't you tell us about how you came to this? So also you're part of the nerd work. So early,
Hmm.
Heather Bird Santley and the Early Childhood Nerd podcast expanded into a class. She's got multiple podcasts now. So you're part of that.
Hmm.
But can you tell us about what made you decide on that name and what does liberated learning mean to you?
Okay. You want to start,
Want to
Mike?
go? Well, I mean, for me, I feel like I heard you use the term, and then I think I was the one who said, well, that's what we should call it, because our conversations, that's always what we're talking about, the thread that goes through all our
Yeah.
conversations, whether we're talking about a
Hmm.
musical, talking about helping a child in the bathroom, talking
Hmm.
about getting food for a family, whatever it is, like it's about liberation.
Hmm.
And so, because I think we toyed with other titles for a while, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, this kind of describes every conversation we've had.
Yeah. Um, and piggybacking on that, originally the book, We Are Who We're Waiting For, the name of it was supposed to be Liberated Learning. And so we were going to do the podcast. Again, the thread that we always pull everywhere we go is about liberation. Everything comes back to liberation. And so it just made sense. And we did, because the book's title was no longer Liberated Learning, we did think, oh, maybe we'll find something else. But it just kept coming back to liberation, because everything that how we design both of our learning spaces is all built around the liberation of self and others. So it just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Hmm.
I really didn't think, I don't think for sure. I can't say for sure, but I credit my connection to liberation. That word came to me
Hmm.
when I was in Anji, China. I was at the True Play conference and visiting for the first time. I had been like a fellowship. So a group of us had applied and like been selected to like study Anji and learn about it. So I had
Hmm.
been on a retreat and I kind of got it, but it wasn't until I was actually there, right? I'm in Anji and I'm there. And I remember sitting there and there was like a meeting and people were talking. And I was like, what is it about this that's so powerful? Like I've seen kids play before and I get that play is important. But I was like, what is it that I hear the adults talking about at the conference and then the two words that came to me were freedom and liberation. Like what I
Mm.
saw were the children engaged in the act of freedom through play and through choice and running around. But what I heard from the adults at the conference, the way they talked about how using Anji play or using play, period, really changed their approach was I saw them being liberated, right? I always talk about teachers
Hmm.
being liberated from a lot of the things that we are set up to believe in early childhood, right? And so they were
Yeah.
free from that. Both were liberated, right? But it was this kind of
Hmm.
idea. And so I've been toying with that play as freedom, play as liberation, and this idea that when we let children play, what they're doing, the learning is actually this liberated learning, right? It's the learning that
Yeah.
happens based on you doing what your body wants you to do or needs you to do so that you're engaging in the things that really matter the most, right? At that time, even if it looks silly or frivolous to us, like when a child is running around in circles screaming, and part of me is going, I guess there's a part of his brain going, I need this, I need this, I need
I
this.
need it and I'm going to do
I
it.
need it. And I
Right.
was like, I mean, that's not in my brain, but that's in his brain. My brain told me
Right.
yesterday I needed pizza and chicken wings. So I got both, right? So
Yes.
our brain tells us things sometimes, and right,
Hmm.
kids' brains
Hmm.
are telling them. And so I remember
Yeah.
everyone's like, "We got to stop," and I'm like, we gotta figure it out." Like the brain is telling them
Hmm.
this needs to happen. What we needed to control was the noise, right? Because
Yeah.
so we had to like shift the space so that the noise flowed outside a little bit more and not inside,
Hmm.
or give him something to channel. But like he needed something in that moment. He wasn't running around in circles screaming because of that. It's like trying to figure out
Yeah.
what he needs in that moment instead of trying to be like, stop what you're doing, right? So I
Right.
think about liberation in that sense, right? The kids, their bodies are designed and wired for learning, for development, for all these things, and they're trying to kind of piece through it. And it's our job to kind of support them without always interfering, but we're taught to interfere. We're taught to kind of like make it look a certain way. Like I always tell my students, I think the movie, I always go back to A Christmas Story because it's such a classic scene, right? Where all the kids are sitting in rows in the desks and they have the fake thing in the mouth and they're like, "Good morning, Miss," and then she makes them all come up one by one and give them right. There's that idea that that's what teaching should look like. All kids sitting in perfect rows. Good morning, Miss so and so, and like uniform.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is not like that's the furthest
Right.
thing from what I'm like. So take that image, which I used to tell my students, what you think is what teaching should look like, and please
It's
like
the
put it
opposite.
away because that is
Yeah.
not like that's just good for TV, right? That's but a
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah.
people come in thinking like, or they should be sitting in a semicircle. Crisscross applesauce, eyes on me, focused and
Hmm.
ready and engaged fully. And I'm like, yeah, no,
That's not
again, that doesn't
liberation.
work for most kids
That's
to be
no,
like that. That's not how they learn and develop and process new information in any of those things, right? So I think
no.
there's this battle between those things.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, please do.
So, Mike and I have talked about this many times. My definition of freedom is time and choice, but freedom is conditional. Somebody can
Mm,
come and control it, police it, ration it, right? But
mm-hmm,
liberation is embodied, and that's what you saw. I heard you talking about that in Angie. So it's
mm-hmm,
just something that no one can take away from you.
mm,
It's something that you feel, right? And so when I distinguish between the two, freedom is your time and choice, but somebody can take your time and your choice away.
mm-hmm.
And liberation, no one can take that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I think of it as like liberation is an active thing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
Freedom is
Yeah,
kind
it's
of given
completely
to
embodied.
you or
Yeah.
you use it, whatever, but like liberation is
Hmm.
something you do and you do
Hmm.
it in connection with others. It's
mm,
not something
Hmm.
but even someone, I mean, when you think about, people in concentration camps, like it's been written about, right? That it's like you can still be liberated because what you
yes.
do and what
Yes.
you think, and
Yeah.
no one can take that away from you.
No.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's what I think is so big. And then for us, I think the conversations Keith and I have, it's based on because you start with what you know, what your own
Mm-hmm.
experience is, and then you kind of like,
Yeah.
so what that's what I know so far. And now I'm curious why this person is doing something different than me.
Hmm.
Let me figure
Hmm.
that out. Oh, and the more you do that and have that approach, the more you get somebody that's not like you, or a family that's not like you, or a child behaving
Hmm.
totally different than any other kid you've worked with. It's
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
curiosity of, oh, I don't know what's going on. Let me
Yeah.
figure this out because they are showing me their own liberation or their own needs or strengths or
Like the
interests.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
And
running around.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
so that to me, why that's what the word liberation means versus freedom. That
Yeah.
it's more like just get out of the way and help remove barriers that are keeping children from playing with each other,
Mm-hmm.
understanding each other. We are the more experienced one in the room for a lot of things. So a
Hmm.
child might know, how do I play chase with a child who can't walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
that can be my role. But then once they kind of see those things or see those connections, then
Hmm.
that further liberates you, or so yeah, but it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
always
And
active.
it's always active.
Yeah.
I do agree to that. Yeah, and it was definitely embodied. It was an embodied practice because I had to see it both,
Mhm.
I'm
Hmm.
there seeing so much children playing and the teachers and what they were doing and the adults, right? And how they were deciding to be in the moment too and the choices they were making, right? Which weren't to like run up and interfere the way I was making. And I just got there and I'm trying to like interfere because I thought this boy was gonna
Right.
crash into the wall and he's looking at me like, get out of my way, lady. Again, the universal language of play is laughter. So we weren't
Yeah.
laughing at that moment. So we were using hand gestures because,
Hmm.
I don't speak Mandarin. He doesn't speak English. But like, I'm literally like, boy, you gonna crash into this wall because he's gonna fly down the hill. And he's looking at me like, lady. So I step aside and he did not crash into the wall because he knew how to turn the sled and like skid to the side and come to a complete stop. And then I'm like cheering him on, like, and he's looking at me like, yeah, whatever. And he's going back up the hill to do it again. And so, yeah, like in that moment, I was like, he wasn't liberated, right? I was trying to block
Hmm.
that because I thought he needed protection, but he didn't, right? He didn't need, and no one was
Yeah.
there. And that's the other thing, because there's like, hundreds of kids in these spaces. And so there's not an adult watching every last one of them, which to us seems like that can't be possible, right? Like I ran a
Hmm.
preschool at a university and Yeah, no, the thought of like this one girl hopped the fence one day and took off, and luckily a teacher went right behind her. But to say that there was no teacher in that area and like we couldn't have stopped that, like that's unacceptable, right? But like
Hmm.
here, it's like no, that boy was paying by. There was no one adult nearby, and he was fine, and no one was worried
Right.
about him. But I
Mhm.
was because I wasn't in a liberation space. Like I was in a worried, this isn't safe. What's going to happen? And that
Hmm.
sort of thing. And so yeah, it definitely felt
That Western
embodied.
narrative that we
Yeah.
have that, I'm scared for him, so I'm
Oh
gonna
my God, I'm so scared.
interfere.
Because I'm watching him
Yeah.
build, like he's building a ladder. He's building ladders down the hill, and he
Hmm.
keeps there's a gap, and so he doesn't pick up enough speed. But I know he's gonna put it all together, and then the speed because he's way up at the top, and so but there
Yeah.
was this like wall there, and so my thinking is he's just gonna crash right into the wall. What kid knows that
Hmm.
he knew exactly what to do, like, but
That kid
that
knew.
kid
Yeah.
knew exactly what to do. Exactly. He knew how to he had to get each ladder connected so there was no gap. Like that's all I thought he was going to do because that I thought was going to take the longest amount of time. But he actually
Yeah.
did it pretty quickly. And then I got scared because I'm like, oh no, here comes Speed Racer. Here comes Speed Racer. And he totally was skilled at it, right? And so, but he had this, but that freedom, right? That time and choice. He must have, I don't know. I left. I took like 6 pictures of it. I tell the story and all my writings about it. I don't know how long he stayed
Hmm.
at it because I moved on. There was so much to see, right? And he was
Yeah.
there. I was there with him for a good probably 20 minutes, but that could have lasted for 2 hours. And no one was there
Yeah.
to stop him and like make him do something else. And I don't know if he decided to do something else, right? Because he had both the freedom, right, to do that. And then he was like completely liberated in that he could just work on it, right? He was just in this
Hmm.
space. And so
And he was playing, so he could have crashed into a wall before and learned.
exactly, and learned exactly,
So,
exactly. Yeah. There was one boy, they do get, of course, kids get hurt and you think it's no big deal.
hmm.
And I have a series of photos. I've never shared these, but he's on the roller and he's like showing off. So I have him in all the
Hmm.
photos. And then you see one where he goes down and then he gets up and he's holding his arm. And then the teacher comes over and then he's fine. He's
Yeah,
back on the
yeah.
roller. Wasn't a big deal. So that's probably
Right.
why I've never shared it because I like
Yeah.
it was actually, but I caught it the way I was snapping the camera. It's like I caught it.
Right.
Just and so yeah, there's just all these moments where you're able to see where the kids are like doing all of these different things. And so what I also love is that, you talk about play being the way for this, but I want to ask, what do you think gets in the way of early childhood educators and caregivers and even parents, right, to embracing liberation and embracing play as like I don't know, I think it's a vehicle for this, right, for this liberation that we want.
I think the
Oh.
theme, I know you're looking at me like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Um, I mean, I think the theme that we've been talking about lately is like the lack of imagination
Mm,
Hmm.
in a way, right? That it's you have to imagine that children are able to spend 20 minutes putting these ladders together or an hour or whatever. And I think there's a lack of imagination in our system. We kind of create a system as if all children do one thing.
hmm
And then we
Hmm.
focus on, and this is that hard thing of you lose the humanity when you start focusing on individual skills,
mm,
Yeah.
And so then it's like, well, the child is just trying to have fun and go down this hill, and he
Hmm.
has this idea of how it works. And, I'm sure, a lot of us are probably going through in our brains, okay, so that means, he's using this skill, he's using these motor skills, he's, planning ahead of time, then he's executing the plan and he has to adapt the plan and, showing some mental flexibility and all that. And it's like, well, yes, that's a way to define it after the fact.
hmm
Yeah.
But
But just
the
let him go.
actual, yeah, but just let them go.
Yeah.
And our imagination is like this idea that kids won't do this unless we set up these activities or like, okay, they can't last this long, so we're gonna like cut the time to these shorter segments and have them move to something else so they don't get
Yeah.
bored or
Hmm.
whatever word we use. And yet,
Hmm.
if you give them the time and freedom or the time and choice, they won't get bored. It's when it's like, okay, well, you can play with Legos for this long, or you have these three things you can play with.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. That's where I go with it of like
No, yeah,
it's
no, I
our
love
own
that.
imagination that
Yeah, for sure.
image of the
Yeah.
child would be the way,
Image of the
Reggio
That's
child.
would
Yeah.
exactly
say.
what I was
Yeah.
thinking the whole time you were
hmm
talking. Yeah. Our lack of imagination keeps us from seeing the image of the child as capable. It makes us fearful of what they cannot do. We see them as a deficit, see everything they do as a deficit,
Hmm.
because we want to step in. And I think the main thing is that we don't see the humanity in children, not
Hmm.
intentionally. We don't see it maliciously. It's
Hmm.
just that we believe we're helping make this human being, right? To
Yeah.
go out and go into school and go into the world. But the gag is the child is human right now. And
Hmm.
they're right there. And they're
Yeah.
showing us the things that they know and how capable they are and what they can do. And sometimes they can hold a mirror up and show us what we need strengthening in, right? But we have to be able to put our ego aside, put our narratives aside, put our fear aside, and look out at it in order to, you know, correct it. And sometimes
Hmm.
we have blinders on. We're scared
Hmm.
to look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I mean,
No, go ahead.
we're starting to get into our podcast mode, but like we talked about this a few episodes ago, but I think it was Mariama Kaba talks about that idea of that lack of imagination when she says like, organizers, you organize some protest and then someone asks, so, um, they call or email, I use a wheelchair. How do I get there? It's like, oh, let me think about that. Let me figure it out. And it's like, oh,
Hmm.
you didn't imagine people with wheelchairs could be
Mhm.
here. And I think the
Yeah,
same thing happens in our programs. Oh, you didn't
agree.
imagine there would be a child that likes to run or needs to run around or needs to
Hmm.
Yeah.
sled really fast or needs to,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and this idea that we design our spaces for a certain child and then we try to make everyone fit that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
how often it's like, every single classroom, I've done trainings for whatever, 20 years now, and everyone has these questions because I read about rough and tumble play. Like, I have this kid who does this, what do I do? And it's this
Hmm.
idea that every time I do a training, there are 5, 10, maybe everybody there nods their head. Oh, yeah, I have a kid who does that too. I'm thinking, why don't we imagine that these kids will be in our room? Instead, we
And design the room differently.
design that,
Yeah.
yeah, like, because
Yeah.
apparently everyone has these kids in there and they still don't
Hmm.
imagine the
Exactly.
kids
Yeah.
there. They just
No, but
Yeah.
we don't
imagine,
want them.
oh,
We don't want them there.
yeah, yeah.
That part.
Is there a way that we can just, yeah, basically,
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
exclusion through special ed,
Yeah.
right? That like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
let's
Yeah.
refer
Yeah.
them versus the
Hmm.
imagining it. Yeah. So,
Yeah. No,
Hmm.
I love that. It reminds me, and I don't want to, Anji's not the only place I've seen play, but it was
Yeah.
a very pivotal moment for me. But we were
Hmm.
it's mind
there.
blowing.
Yeah, no, it is.
Hmm.
We when I was there, I don't remember. Oh, I think I might have asked this question about the transition, right? Like how do you because it's state funded kindergarten, and so then they go on to public school, right? First grade, and I remember thinking the same thing about Reggio, like how is the transition? Because we had a Reggio inspired school in Washington D.C. and so it was like a charter school in the school where I was doing my student teaching at and teaching at, and the teachers
Hmm.
in the first grade school would complain that the Reggio kids weren't as they were very creative but they didn't know how to sit down and follow instructions because they didn't do that all day, right? So there was a disconnect with the transition. So I asked them and Angie, and they said, we realized that same thing was happening. So what they did one year was invite all of the first grade teachers to come and spend a day at Angie. And what did the teacher say? We didn't know the kids could do this.
Hmm.
Yes.
We had no idea. They were shocked. Like they didn't know the
Yeah.
kids could do such things. And now they're like, we
Hmm.
have to rethink everything because they're coming to us and they can already do all of these things and we had no
Hmm.
idea. So it's part of that imagination, right? They didn't know, right? That they
Hmm.
were yeah, that they were able to do so much. They just didn't see children as capable, right? And in that
Hmm.
way and nobody did, right? Miss Chung says like it wasn't until she stepped back and really observed the kids that she realized that they could do this, right? It takes time, right? Even the kids takes time to like get into the play, right? When new places have gotten
Hmm.
on G Play materials, I had friends in Duluth. I was there a couple summers ago when they got some equipment, they got a grant, and they were doing it in the summer at a Boys and Girls Club summer program. And so I came the first week and observed a few days, and we were a little disappointed because the constructions weren't as elaborate as what we saw in Anji. And
Yeah.
so we were both, because we were all there. And so I was like, well, then they messaged me in the fifth week. They said, oh, it took time, but it got better,
It
Right.
took
right? The
time.
kid needed time
Yeah.
because a lot of it, the staff kept saying no to a lot of questions. And so that's the first
Mhm.
thing you have to address is why not. So they were in this huge field. So the kids started to take the materials, which are big planks and boards, and then they were like, no, don't go there. And they're like, well, why not? They have the entire fenced area. It gets more
Yeah.
elaborate the more space you
Hmm.
take up.
Right.
So they had to work
Yeah.
with the staff of the Boys and Girls Club to like stop
To
saying no
change
to
their
the
mind.
children. And then the
Hmm.
children have to feel like, okay, I really do have this freedom. You're not going to take it
Hmm.
away. And it didn't take a week it took 5 or 6 weeks to the end where they finally felt, okay, this is my time. This is my space. I can do this and no one's going to stop
Hmm.
me. And I've heard that in other people who've also bought new equipment. It's like the kids kept checking back to see if someone's going to stop them as they're stacking higher
Mhm.
and higher and higher. And when they finally
Yeah.
realize no one's going to stop them, then they can get immersed in it, right? But they're hesitant to like do more if someone's going to swoop in and say you can't do that, right? And so
Right.
there's a lot of
Hmm.
negotiation there. But yeah, I think we called it when we were in the fellowship program. Our trainer said, you have to identify what makes you what pushes up against your edges, right? As adults,
Mhm.
what makes us feel uncomfortable in play. And so I always do sessions with teachers about what is it. I exclusionary play breaks my heart because it's just hard, and
Mhm.
I know it's not, you can't rush and just, that's not nice, you should play with everyone. It's not the answer, but that's what my heart
Hmm.
wants to do
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
feel for the kid who's being excluded. So I have to like know that when it's happening, it's triggering me, and I have to like understand that this is more about me and my problems and not the kids, right? And like
Hmm.
sometimes I'm more upset for the kid who got excluded and the kid who got excluded. The kid who got excluded is like, whatever, I'm gonna play with you anyway. And I'm like, oh, poor baby, you have
Right.
to
Yeah.
hear my baby. Thanks so much, dude. It's the
Yeah.
world. So, right, but that's me. That's
Yeah.
me, and that's my edge,
Hmm.
and that's my
But what you're doing there
uncomfortableness.
is you're reflecting. Yeah, you're finding
Yeah,
your edges and
yeah,
reflecting
Yeah.
on it. Because I think
yes,
that's the
yes.
Hmm.
biggest thing. The way that active verb of liberation
Hmm.
for the adults in the room is like, okay, why not?
Yeah,
Because
Hmm.
you don't, and you shouldn't just like, oh, just let everything happen if you don't know why you're letting it happen. Also, right? You have to
yeah,
learn how to trust children and, which requires you to trust them. But it's like you might trust them a little bit. The next day, okay, I can trust a little more, and
yeah,
it helps if you
Hmm.
have other adults to talk to about that. Because
yeah.
I can't remember the chapter you have in your book. I was just looking at it, Kisa. But you have one about reflection. I forgot the phrase you use in the book, but that reflective practice, like it's this my story's in that chapter. That's why I know about it.
Oh, I don't remember what the name of the practice is, but I know what chapter you're talking about now.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you're always learning, right? Is
Hmm.
basically the premise of that, right? That
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
teacher has figured it out either.
Hmm.
Um whatever, there's 13 years experience versus doing the same thing 13 years is another way of saying that.
Absolutely.
That's the Heather
Hmm.
way of saying it, or
Yeah. And the way that I did it, I don't, recommend, but it 100% worked for me. I was very teacher centered, and when I started my family home care, it was like, I had the block center and everything looked like a classroom and all the bright colors and the circle rug and everything. And when I started to shift, the best way for me was to let everything fall apart. I let go of everything. And it
Mhm.
was complete chaos.
Mm.
But it was chaos that I just sat back and watched because the children, they didn't feel like they had permission to do anything. And so they kept
Mm.
looking at me. What are we going to do? What should I do? So I'm just like, what are you going to do? And let them be feral, for lack of a better word,
Hmm.
until they assembled. And that's exactly what happened. They just came together, and we would come in and they would say, well, what are we going to do today? I think we should do blank. And so they built and built. They started taking ownership over the materials. They had their tool cabinet, so they could go and get their glue. They could go and get their paint. And so for me, there was no other way because I'm a teacher's kid. And that narrative was steeped in me that you have to control and ration and you police everything that they're doing. So the only way that I could let go of that was to let go with both hands and then build from there.
Yeah, I love that. Heather mentions that in her book. I forgot the word she used for it, but like the scripts we have from playing school
Hmm.
of teacher and
Yeah.
like how they follow us and like yeah, and then we
Hmm.
create this idea of what we think it should be. And so it
Yeah.
sounds like, it sounds like one of the ways you embrace liberation is by letting go of the need to control it all, right? And Mike, you
Yeah.
talked about reflection, right? Be like
Hmm.
stepping
Hmm.
back and reflecting. I think for me it was I tell people you have to witness it. Like you don't
Yeah.
know, you have to see it in action. Like so we went from a watching Anji play video at a retreat and me reaching to the video trying to protect that child 6 times while the adult standing there only did it twice. Twice she
Hmm.
reached out her hand
Hmm.
and put support, but I went to the video like, oh my God, that child's gonna fall. What are you doing? Right.
Yeah.
So I saw that and that didn't change it, but being there and actually seeing it in action really helped too.
Hmm.
And so what I tell teachers sometimes is like, yeah, that idea, the ability to just step back, right? I had a teacher in Pittsburgh. We got one of those wooden rollers that, we brought
Hmm.
it, and this boy was like, I bet you I can do it. And we were like, it's hard to balance. He was like, I bet you I can do it. And so we were like, all right, let's get a camera, let's go see it. And the teacher goes, you know what? This is making me feel uncomfortable. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna let you guys do it, right? And so that was her
Hmm.
edge. This wasn't safe. She didn't believe he can do it, but like she wasn't gonna stop it. Like she just went
Hmm.
away and trusted us. We're like, wait for us. We're gonna grab our camera, and we ran. And it took
Hmm.
him a few tries, but by the end, like we had a long path. He was like standing on it and bouncing and pushing it forward for the end. It's the first time we brought this thing into the play space, right? But like
Yeah.
but she had to, otherwise she would have been, no, this is making me uncomfortable. No, you
Hmm.
can't do that. That's not safe. What are you talking about? Right.
Hmm.
And so I think
Hmm.
there's a lot of things, ways that we can embrace, but it's like we have to look at these practices, right? And think about, how
Hmm.
do we get around them and as well. I guess I want to leave you with a question that I didn't prep you for, but why do you think it's important to have liberation in early childhood? I think this is the question people ask me a lot
Hmm.
because I'm actually writing about this. Like I believe in like a liberatory early childhood pedagogy that I want people to embrace. But I think the question is, well, why should we want liberation in early childhood? I mean, for me, it's about I think it's how we resist systems of oppression that take over
Hmm.
the hearts of young children who grow up, right? And if we don't actively give them something in their young years, like I think they're just more susceptible to that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about why do you think this is needed? Is there the benefit to the children and a benefit to the adults? I mean, we're working with them all day. That's why I say there's got to be a balance. It can't all be for the kids. If it's all for the kids, but it's not making us any better, then what is it? Like, that's not a good thing either, right? I
No,
think it's fine
no.
for it to be
Hmm.
couched in it's helpful for me too as a human, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm gonna let
think
you go.
yeah, I know. I can I've recognized your looks, like which side you're like, go Mike,
You
go.
start.
But I think it comes down to the rule that both of us have, right? We take care of each other. And
Hmm.
we take care of each
Yes.
other is, I mean, it's essential theology, really. Like
Hmm.
all major religions basically have some version of we take care of each other.
Hmm.
And um most humanists have a similar thing, right? That the whole idea is figuring out how do we as a society take care of each other.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
sometimes there's like systems put in place with this idea. It's just that we doesn't include everyone.
Mm.
And that's the difference, right? Is that when people decide, when we say we mean all of us.
Hmm.
And then you have to figure out how to take care of each other. And that's true
Hmm.
of we take care of each other isn't we take care of the kids. We
Yeah.
take care of the adults in the program too. We take care of the families that are there. We take care like childcare centers, childcare programs, family childcare. Those are essential hubs in communities. It's
Yeah.
how things happen. Here in the Twin Cities, the last few months, we had a lot of mutual aid happening in every walk of life. And it was the phrase here was we keep each other safe.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
keep each other safe.
Yeah.
But it was thousands of people delivering groceries. It was hundreds of people or thousands of people helping kids get to school. It was giving people rides. Same thing happened at the Montgomery bus boycott, right?
Hmm.
There was an
Hmm.
average of
Yeah.
4,000 carpools a week in Montgomery during the bus
Yep.
boycott,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And it's that idea when suddenly people realize, wait a second, we can take care of each other.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And there's people not being taken care of in the system that's currently here. And rather than just fighting that system or defending what you do need, it's you create the world you do need, right? And
We are
so
the ones we've been waiting for.
there you
Hmm.
go. Oh, you should name a book that.
Yeah, yeah, you should write about that more, Kisa.
Geez, I'm realizing our books kind of play off each other constantly, and
Yeah.
who knows? The next one we should find out
Like,
soon. We might be doing
yeah,
something together,
team up, right?
but just that idea that helps everyone, not just the adults in the program,
Hmm. Hmm.
everyone in the community, and part of that is just the attitude. If you can carry that attitude outside of your walls,
Hmm.
young children and the elderly are the most invisible, and the disabled are the most invisible people in our society.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then you can put intersectional identities in that too. But
Hmm.
we got to get beyond our own walls. And so, but it starts with how we change and having kids have that attitude from the beginning
Yeah.
that they take care of each other. It's not just the teacher taking care of them. We all do it. And
Yeah.
that's if our whole society did that, the towns we live in, the cities we live in, if we did that, we'd all be better off. So I
And
talked
it's
way more than I
possible.
meant to. Sorry. Go ahead,
No, it's
It's
Kisa.
good.
possible. All I'm going to do is piggyback off of that because we take care of each other. It's something that we instill in the children, and it's a reciprocal thing, right?
Hmm.
So, one of my favorite quotes is the function of freedom is to free someone else.
Hmm.
If we
Toni Morrison,
show
right?
children, Toni Morrison, if we show children that they can be liberated through this and they reflect it to us and we're liberated, we have to go on and take care of other people. We have to show other teachers, we have to show other children, that not just the children we care for in the classroom, not just the children that came through us or came to us. It's everyone around. And once we start to do that, and small cultures become big communities, then we can really start to affect some change. So it's so important that we do this. Some child, just like we sit around talking
Hmm.
about what happened when we were little and our core memories, there's going to be a group of children talking about what they learned when they shared space with us.
Mm.
So we better do some revolutionary work so they can talk about how they learned how to be liberated from the time they were children.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's great. No, I think that sums it all up. I mean, it's just there's a lot, but I think it's important that people recognize that one, we're not set up to this way. Like I think that's an intentional thing that we don't think about liberation and freedom and resistance and all
Hmm.
that. And that's intentional, right? I think ever since
Yeah.
the Vietnam War protest, they've been like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, buddy, let's
Yeah.
pull back a little. It's only
Slow down.
intensified. Yeah, yeah, it's only intensified where that's
Yeah.
been resisting. And so
Hmm.
there's, we're not getting that kind of setup, and kids are like kind of being fed this like, I don't know, this narrative that doesn't position them to want these things, right? And I think that
Yeah.
is also
Hmm.
intentional. So if we really think about what are we doing with young children and what do we want our time with them to be, then we're more intentional about creating those things that we think are important. So well, thank you
Exactly.
guys. I love the podcast.
Yeah.
I will catch up
Thank
tomorrow on
you.
my walk. And I hope everyone else, if you're not listening, it's called Liberated Learning. It's on Apple. I listen on Apple. I don't know if it's on
Yeah,
other
Yes,
pretty
wherever
much
you get
everything.
distribution,
your,
wherever you
yeah,
get your podcasts,
your
right? Liberated
podcast.
Learning, part of the early childhood nerd work. And is it weekly? You guys are doing?
Yep.
Every
Yeah,
Monday.
Every Monday,
every
Yeah.
Monday, new episode on Monday. So,
4 a.m.
Oh,
Eastern Standard Time or Eastern
that's
Time.
right.
yeah, all right. I catch whenever I hit the road, but it's
Yeah.
already down. It's always out. It's already ready to go.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike and Kisa. Please check out. We'll share when we share this episode. We'll share links to Kisa's book and Mike's book as well too, so that you can check those out. And we'll have to have you on for another conversation on
Thank you.
defending childhood. Thank you so much, and
Yeah.
thank you guys
Thank
Thanks.
for joining
you.
us.
Ta-ta.